And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Doubting Thomas monthly recap for March 2022. Once again, just the other day, Cliff and I were chatting, and I looked at the calendar and said, "Oh crap, we need to do a Doubting Thomas monthly recap because this is not a regular enough thing." Apparently, we've only been doing this for like 15 months now. So
Right.
anyway, joining me for the doubting to my Thomas, no, the Thomas to my doubting is Clifton Thomas. How you doing, Cliff?
Oh, you know.
you can't you can't hear it on the high quality, but I'm mouthing words to myself while Cliff answers. Anyway, it's been a week.
Uh,
So yeah, we're continuing on with our unusual or our different, not unusual, different format for Doubting Thomas monthly recap, because the top stories for this month were the MWC recap, which Cliff was part of, the Samsung Galaxy S22 review, which Cliff was part of, the Lenovo Legion review, which Cliff was part of, and the Nothing discussion that we had, which Cliff was part of. So once again, I don't know that Cliff will have anything to add. I mean, maybe we can talk about Nothing a little bit more, because it seems like maybe there's a little bit more. I don't know if really anything's happening. Nothing's got a one more thing coming tomorrow, which is either an April Fool's prank, or they're going to launch their launcher, because they said they would put out the launcher in
right.
April. So it could be that, or it could be just nothing. It could be nothing.
It's
Whatever it is,
nothing, even when
it's
it is nothing. It's
whatever
just.
it is. It's gonna be nothing.
And if I recall, they actually showed off whether it's actually, you know, real or not, but they showed off a picture of like the a
The bottom of
portion
some
of the
kind of
phone,
phone.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So looks a little curvy.
So yeah, it does, and actually, I noticed the bottom bezel looks super like tiny, like minuscule. Like it seemed like it was going like all the way up to the rounded edge part, which is nice, because often you get that bottom chin.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
speaking of bottom chins, I also have in my possession the OnePlus 10 Pro, which came out today. This is no longer under embargo, so I can talk about it, which is nice. I've been using the phone for only about 5 days, actually. I've had the phone since mid last week. Funny enough, I actually got the job. I actually got the phone literal minutes after my briefing on the phone ended. Like, we hung up, my doorbell rang, and I went and picked up the phone. So it would have been nice to have this during the briefing, but it wasn't strictly necessary. It's pretty much just a recap of the press release. Hey, guess what? I can still see 120 hertz on it. And you know what? I think I kind of know what it is. Like, I think, despite the fact that OnePlus says fast and smooth, I think that OnePlus intentionally makes animations just a little bit slower, and therefore a little bit more smooth.
Hmm.
So, like, while I'm pulling down the notification shade, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but like, while I'm pulling it down, it's like it just moves very smoothly, as opposed to like other things, which just kind of like, they flick down with your finger. This kind of like just goes, yeah, I'm good.
It's got a
you
got a
know,
little inertia to it.
it has a little inertia to it, I think, and
Right.
I
Right.
think that might be like the ultimate difference. But I can see, I mean, like, I can see this. I still don't care, but I can see it. And
Well,
I'm
I
going to
would I would
maintain that
think,
position.
and this I think this is a possibility is that the good folks over at OnePlus have been listening to the Benefit of the Doubt podcast,
Of
and
course.
and they noticed that you had said that you can't tell when there's a high refresh rate screen, and so they wanted to do you a solid and you
They
know
wanted to be the ones.
exactly.
It's very possible. So, I haven't played with the camera like at all. In fact, most of my knowledge of the phone comes from reading reviews that are out there. I've been using the phone, which is great. I've also changed my charging habits
Hmm.
because of this phone.
Mm.
Now, OnePlus included a 65-watt charger in the box with the phone, which is, similar, on par to It's not on par. It's on par to like the gaming phone, the Red Magic phone that I was reviewing as well. That's also a 65-watt charger. So they included this in the box. There's a little controversy around it because overseas you get an 80-watt charger. Here you only get a 65-watt charger. But the nice thing is, this goes from dead to full in 34 minutes. And with an 80-watt charger, it goes from dead to full in 32 minutes. So it's really only a 2-minute difference.
Well, it's a scientific fact that when you cross over into the Western Hemisphere, phones are more likely to catch on fire or overheat, and so that's
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. So anyway, so because of that, because of OnePlus's promises of fast charging, I am not plugging my phone in overnight. Instead, I'm plugging my phone in when it drops below, it's anywhere between like 15 to 20%. When it gets down to that, I will plug it in for half an hour and it is topped off and ready to go. So I'm kind of like OnePlus is basically daring me to stop charging my phone overnight. So I'm going to stop charging my phone overnight and I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going out of town this weekend and I'm going to maintain this pattern. So I may wake up Sunday morning ready to get on a plane with a phone at 20%. That's very possible. Now, if that's the case, I plan to wake up at least a half an hour before we have to leave. So I plan to top off my phone right before we go to the airport. Bada bing, bada boom, full phone. No problem, right? It would be just the same as if I went to sleep with it
It really does
charging.
It does spoil you. I have a Realme GT that has the 65-watt charging technology, the Super VOOC technology, and it does. I mean, it's fast enough to where you can actually watch the percentage ticking up. You know, it's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
watching the boiling pot of water that you come back and oh, it's charged a few points. That you can actually see it charging.
Yeah, now on this on the OnePlus, they actually do decimals. So they'll do like
Mm,
1.2%,
wow.
1.3%, 1.4%. So I mean, and it ticks up pretty fast, like tick, tick, tick. You know, it's pretty going
Mm-hmm.
pretty fast there. So yeah. Anyway, so that is something that we are probably going to talk about in more depth within the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned for that. And Cliff also has a Motorola Edge Plus that he bought and will undoubtedly return at some point. Um, but yeah, so we'll be talking about that phone as well. And once again, I don't want this to be a phones podcast, but here we are. It's
Yep.
just kind of
It usually
how
ends
it's
up this
working out.
way. It just happens.
Yeah, it is what it is. But that's fine. That's great. That's great. We love phones. We are who we are. So
My phone unfortunately only has a 30-watt charger in the box.
oh, wah
Yeah,
wah. What are you
yeah.
even gonna do with that? That's terrible. That's just
Re-
terrible.
return
It's terrible. You probably are. But
it.
no, I mean in all seriousness, yeah, you are gonna return that phone.
Probably.
I don't remember my YouTube address. Is it benefit or benefit of a doubt? I think it's benefit of a doubt. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to tweet in real time here, so we just grab that link and then
But
close that so I
look
don't
at
listen.
the color shifting there, huh?
Yeah, that is
Huh?
pretty. That is pretty.
Huh?
And I did not review that phone for Digital Trends. One of my freelancers did, and he came away. It was a good phone. I mean, it probably wasn't the amaze balls phone that Motorola would like us to call it, but it was a good phone. It was a pretty good phone.
Yeah, so
And
far
I'm a
would say
little
that's good.
disappointed that you didn't get the case and the pen with it though, because I kind of wanted to see how that was going to work out. But
Yeah, no. If I didn't do it with a Galaxy S21 Ultra, I'm definitely not going to do it with a
understood.
Motorola.
That's fair. That is a very fair point. Okay, so we should get into the stories of the month. Oh no, we were gonna talk about something. We talked about it. We mentioned it briefly off the air. There is a TV show called Ships of the Northern Fleet,
Hmm.
which is I just learned about this the other day from my friends over on the Two Girls One podcast, and shout out to Allie Gold, who friend of the show. This
Indeed.
is an entirely made up TV show based on an entirely made up set of books. and it was a steampunk it was like ships flying around with different characters and like different actors that have signed on to play characters. And this started on TikTok,
Hmm.
and it was a writer's creation. He said, we're going to, I don't remember the exact terminology. He said, we're going to participate in a mass delusion experience where we're all going to talk about a show which was based on a series of books called Ships of the Northern Fleet. And that's all he said. And people just started making up characters for this thing, like, oh, that's right, I remember Captain, Barnabas Rufus or something like that. And the one time that he was trying to chase the dragon down and had to shoot his harpoon, but he actually missed the dragon and ended up winging it instead, and the wing got caught up in the harpoon rope. And and basically people will make up things that they remember about this show and about these books. And it's gotten to the point, I kid you not, that this TV show that never existed and never will exist has an IMDb page.
They've spoken into existence.
They
While
have
not.
willed it into existence, and there is a fan base surrounding this TV show. There is merch for the TV show, and they arguably sell more merch than I do, so I'm a little upset by that.
I I kind of want to get some merch from it now.
I want to. There's a T-shirt that says, "It's like swiggity swaggity, let's blow up gravity," and it says "Ships of the Northern Fleet" on the bottom of it. I really want that shirt, honestly. So, if anybody, if you don't have to be a patron, benefitofdoubt.com or patreon.com/benefit of doubt, you don't have to be a Patreon. But if you do want to send me a swiggity swaggity, let's blow up gravity T-shirt, I will accept that with thanks. My DMs are open. Anyway, so I just thought this was kind of hilarious, and they talked about this on the Two Girls One podcast. I haven't listened to that episode yet, but I just saw it mentioned in their Discord, and so I just started doing some like preliminary like research into it, and I just thought I'm like absolutely in love, and I think I might be a fan of the TV show now.
Well, I hadn't heard about this. I am intrigued, and I want to know more.
Well, get on TikTok
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna
Google
have
Ships of
to.
the Northern Fleet.
You know, here's the thing. I have been very hipster about TikTok. I hate to say this, and part of it is because my wife is obsessed with TikTok, and you know, even when we're watching TV, has her phone in her hands and is on TikTok. And so, I mean, while I have a TikTok account, I think I've created a total of like 2 videos in the time that I've had it. And
I think I've created like maybe 4.
I,
So yeah, no
but I
big deal
didn't
there.
realize that there's that I forget what it was called, but it's like your TYT or something. It's your like you can narrow down what you see in your feed to sort of your interests, which I
Oh,
did
really?
not realize.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
So,
did
like
not
as
know
an
that
example,
either.
my wife sees art instruction stuff and a few other things. Stuff that's more related to her,
Right.
as far as her life. So, with that said, it might actually be something that I might, check out. So we'll see.
Yeah. I enjoy it. Like, I haven't been on TikTok as nearly as much as I used to, but I still will. The problem is when I go on TikTok, I'm on it for
I
hours.
know.
And it's like each of those videos are only like 60 seconds long. And actually, I think now they're like 3 minutes long or whatever. But I will be on that thing for hours.
I
And
really, I just,
it's such a time suck.
I want to see what smartphone TikTok is like.
Yeah, smartphone TikTok is even more addictive, I would say. It's a little frightening, I got to be honest, but they have such cute dogs.
I
And
know.
and really, I mean, that's really what it's all about. Okay, let's start talking about the the
We've
month
gone
that
from
was.
phones to dogs on TikTok.
Yep. And we got to get through this before my kids get home. So, as long as we were just talking about the OnePlus 10 Pro, let's talk about OxygenOS. Now, my colleague over we linked to a story, and I want to say this was early in the month. This was on our first episode of the month. we linked to a story called OnePlus Walks Back Unified OS Plans. OxygenOS is here to stay. And my top reviewer at Digital Trends, Andy Boxall, is like, but is it really?
It's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
So, like, that meme with the dude from, I think, Nickelback holding up the picture, who
Yes.
like zooms in on the picture and then he's holding up a picture, and it zooms in on the
Yes.
picture and he's holding up a picture. Well, poor Andy reviewed the Oppo Find X5 Pro, the Realme GT2 Pro, I think it was, and then the OnePlus 10 Pro, all back to back, and they are all the same phone.
It's color OS. It really is. Like
And that was, and actually I believe he had an article that was going up today or maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I edited all of them a day ahead of time, so I don't know when it's going up. But he had an article that basically made the argument that OnePlus says that OxygenOS is alive and well, but he's not so sure. Now, I have to wonder. Now, first of all, I did want to show you this. When you long tap on an app and you click on app info, you probably won't be able to see this because it's going to be washed out.
It's basically a block of white.
It's all blurry too.
Yeah.
Let me see if I maybe crank down the brightness. Maybe that'll help. No, it's still all blurry. Anyway, so
you can see it a little bit.
Yeah, so you can see it a little bit. Now, so up at the top there's three options that say open, force stop, and uninstall. And did we mention this on the podcast? We might have already, but it says, no, it's too bright. Anyway, it says open, force stop, and uninstall. The only thing is it doesn't say uninstall. It says uninst. Because
I think you mentioned this on or did you just tell me this off the air? I can't remember.
We might have
discussed it off the air.
Yeah. It might have been off the air. Anyway, no, you know what? I couldn't have talked about this on the air because it was embargoed up until today.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, we must have been off the air. Anyway, so it says uninst ... And the thing is, like, it's not, the three buttons are on their own in the row. It's not dependent on like the name of the app or something that's pushing it over and forcing it to truncate. It's like basically the developer said, oh shoot, we're out of phone, screw it. And like, you want to talk about how amazing OxygenOS is as a piece of software. Uninst does not belong on an amazing piece of software. Now, look, am I nitpicking? Yes, 100% absolutely, I am nitpicking. I will not argue that point at all. But it's just, okay, and I should also say, for the record, I have never been impressed with OxygenOS. It was like always, it's okay. It was never like the amazeballs piece of software that I had to use if I ever wanted to, possibly understand the majesty of OnePlus. So now there are a lot of customizations. You can do the different home screen modes. You can do the different home screen layouts. You can, lock your home screen. You could do, I'm just kind of going down the list here of like the home screen options here. Raise to wake. You could do the gestures on the turned off phone to like turn on the flashlight, which work maybe 50% of the time. So, I mean, like, you can do all that, and that's all kind of cool stuff. But like, in terms of, it's not as cool as that. It's not as cool as the chop. Even though you just washed out your camera for a little bit there. Anyway, so it's like one. I'm going to defer to Andy in this particular case because he did just go from Color OS to Color OS to OxygenOS. And so if there's anybody who's in a position to understand this, it is Andy. And, I will also point out that a couple of other reviews that I read, Sasha Segan, most notably from PC Mag, said the exact same thing. The hardware is great. The software is trash. So, like, as much as OnePlus wants to claim that OxygenOS is alive and well, we're not so sure. And Andy is really not sure. So, and we've had like long conversations about this. So, I mean, I don't really have a point here except, to point out, how have you liked OxygenOS in the past? Have you ever been an OxygenOS disciple?
So the last time that I used OxygenOS in any kind of meaningful way was when the OnePlus 9 came out.
Okay, that was last year.
Yeah. So early, right, or even was it 2019? No,
Mm,
it was 2020,
it was last
2021.
year. I was at
So
Android Central.
yeah, that's right. Um, I think my favorite version of OxygenOS that I used was actually on my OnePlus 7T,
Okay.
and that was a while ago. And then yeah, I feel like once software teams got merged and the oppofication of OnePlus began in earnest, I think the quality of the software, just in terms of its like stability and things like that, has definitely degraded, at least in my opinion. And
Mm.
I'm not a Color OS hater, or for that matter, an Oxygen OS hater. But I mean, I'm the kind of person that wishes that Cyanogen Mod had stayed around with from the original
Yeah.
OnePlus. I mean,
Although,
that's like a whole different conversation, right? But yeah, I mean, I always liked sort of the minimalism of their OS, or their version of Android back in the day, and I liked
mm,
how easy it was to customize, and so that yeah, and how it was community driven. But it it feels like even on, I don't want to say poor translations, but it does not feel like the polish is there like it used to be.
mm. Well, and I think that I have to wonder what the trade-off was, because OnePlus basically officially told everybody, "Hey, we're sharing resources with Oppo," and everyone else is like, "Yeah,
Duh.
duh." But it seems like when they formalized that relationship, it seemed like that there were some caveats that came along with that, like, we're going to, it seemed like that, basically Oppo kind of took control of the software. And not only that, but like just a lot of the R&D, a lot of the development cycle, a lot of that stuff seemed to shift over towards Oppo, because
Right.
that's where Daddy BBK wants to spend the money. So I mean, in a sense I kind of get that, but at the same time, it's I don't want to say it's unfortunate, because I think OnePlus in the long run is going to greatly benefit from this relationship. I think they're probably going to develop even faster than they would have on their own,
Sure.
because of these shared resources, and because what happens to one will happen to the other, and so there's that much more motivation to push this stuff forward. So that's great. But at the same time, and without being nostalgic for a piece of software that I never really cared about to begin with,
Right.
but I understand. Like, I'm empathizing with the OnePlus faithful out there who really dug Oxygen OS. I totally get that. You are allowed to like whatever software you want. I'm not going to yuck your yum,
Oh, I
but I
knew it
am
was
going to.
coming. I knew it was coming.
Exactly. So, but I'm not going to say. But at the same time, I need to point out that it seems like what OnePlus said is not actually what's happening, at least as far as Andy Boxall is concerned. So
Well,
yeah.
I will say that I am, and I think I've said this on a previous podcast, that I'm kind of out on OnePlus right now. I don't. There's nothing that particularly appeals to me about their devices, at least in the high end compared to the competition. I don't think
Hmm.
that they do anything better than like a Samsung, for example. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. And you'll recall last year, the only reason, like, I was ecstatic when Android Central said, "Here, you can have our OnePlus 9 Pro to play with," because I pre-ordered the OnePlus 9 Pro for this podcast in order
Oh,
to
that's right.
review it for this podcast. And I said it at the time. I have ordered iPhones, I have ordered Samsung phones, I have ordered Google phones. The OnePlus phone was the only one that I felt bad about ordering, because I really didn't want it. and 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 so here we are.
Right.
I feel bad about that, because the OnePlus 9 Pro actually turned out to be pretty good. But like, here we are a year later, and I'm using the phone. It's a good phone. I have zero problems using it. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of enjoying the fast charging aspect of it. Like,
Sure.
fast charging was something that never really mattered to me, because I always charge my phone overnight. So I'm forcing myself to live that one plus life, as
Yeah.
it were. So and there'll be an editorial on Digital Trends about that. So keep an eye out for that later in the month, though, because I've got a lot of work to do between then and now. But anyway, we should move on to another phone that I played with this month. And I'm still on the fence as to whether or not I'm going to write this feature or not. But I did use the OnePlus, the iPhone SE this for all of about 4 days, because I was using the iPhone Mini, which honestly wasn't bad. Like I was using the iPhone Mini, the battery life was okay. I never really went out anywhere though, so you know. And even when I do go out, my car mount is a MagSafe charger, so whenever I did go out, it
So
was
yeah,
on the charger.
you are equipped to not to have to worry so much about iPhone battery life
I
for
am
sure.
very well equipped to not worry about iPhone battery life. So anyway, so this past weekend I switched to the iPhone SE, and right around that same time, Michael Fisher came out with like a sort of re-review, a 6-month review of the Surface Duo 2. And
I
he was
saw that.
pointing out how the software was a lot better. I don't see it, but okay. Oh, shit. Here we go. I think the kids are home
Yeah,
and the
that's what I
dogs are
figured.
barking. So,
They're saying
you know
hi.
what, folks? That's just how this podcast is going to go. There's going to be dogs barking in the background, even if it ends up in a review on iTunes. Anyway,
And I
so
mean, you're also recording, getting in my side of the recording, which means a train at any moment could
oh,
just
excellent,
whistle.
excellent.
Yeah, you never
So
know.
anyway, so Michael Fisher mentioned that the Surface Duo 2 was a significantly improved product from where it was 6 months ago. I didn't really dislike it all that much 6 months ago. In fact, I told my editor at the time, AJ, I'm not going to shit on this phone just because it's popular to shit on this phone. I actually kind of dug it. So anyway, so I just wanted to see, one of the things that Michael said during his review was, if you're going to use the Surface Duo, great, but have a smartwatch, because that's how you're going to get your notifications. Because when the Surface Duo is closed, there's no notifications, there's no outside screen. They do have this like little
Yeah, the
glance
little
bar, which
peak part. Yeah,
basically nothing works on. So
yeah.
so he said, just make sure you have a smartwatch. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to have my Apple Watch paired to the iPhone SE as my primary phone, and then I will do everything on this phone. So I'll get notifications on the Apple Watch, like I've got a new, you know, Facebook message or something like that. Whatever. I don't use Facebook, but anyway, I've got a new tweet or something. But then, I would open up the Surface Duo, do whatever I need to do, and then, put it away. That did not go as planned.
Oh,
So, well, because it was fine, and coincidentally, I just happened to have a lot of SMS activity over the weekend. So, like, I obviously couldn't do that from the Surface Duo. I had to do
right.
that from the iPhone SE. Now, I could have used Siri to do those interactions, and that would have been terrible. But for like making outgoing phone calls, I actually did do that. Like if I had to call my wife for whatever reason, I would, hey, blank, and then I would, say call my wife, and it would initiate the call, and I would take calls on the watch and stuff like that. And I was still able to use a lot of the apps that I would normally use, like opening up my lockbox, opening up my garage, stuff like that.
Right.
But when it came to like, just basically replacing the teeny tiny iPhone SE with the gigantic um, Surface Duo, that did not go according to plan. And it also occurred to me that I was carrying around $1,500, $1,929, $2,200 basically worth of tech to do what my $899 OnePlus 10 Pro could do. So
It's
it
very
just
true.
seemed like, at the end of the day, it was just a silly waste of resources, and just like a really ridiculously complicated way to do something, which I guess it was a fun experiment,
It's a great
but
way to test your pockets.
it was a great way to test my pockets. It was an amazing way to test my pockets. But I may repeat this experiment again, just to see if I can maybe get a little bit more mileage out of it or something. Maybe try to do it for like a couple of weeks. See, the other reason why I wanted to use the Surface 202 was because Digital Trends is a Microsoft shop. So we use Outlook, we use
Right.
Teams, we use, SharePoint. We never use SharePoint. We actually use Google Docs half the time. But we're a Microsoft shop basically. So
Mhm.
whenever we're communicating with somebody, it's coming through Microsoft services, which is fine. Like those services are fine. I haven't used Outlook this extensively in decades, but here I am. I'm
Little did
using
you
it
know
now.
he's actually 70 years old, and
Mm.
yeah, he's just aged really well.
No, the last time I used, I mean, it was a decade because the last time I used Outlook was when I was working at the call center.
Oh, really? Even before Brushfire or whatever the company is?
Branchfire, yeah, Branchfire
Branchfire.
was all Apple. That was an Apple
Hmm.
shop. So we used, I think I used Gmail for that. Um, but anyway, so I wanted to use, yeah, it was weird. I wanted to use, no, yeah, actually, because we had G Suite. That was what we did all
Oh,
of our
okay.
work in. So anyway, I wanted to use the Surface Duo for a while and see how that would work out using all these different Microsoft services. And like in that regard, it was actually pretty good. But there's still some weird software hiccups in there that still need to be ironed out. That's fine. It's a seven. It doesn't have to be better than a seven. It's a seven phone. I mean, that's really what
Right,
it boils
right.
down to.
It is nice that, because I'll tell you, that is the difference though between the Surface Duo 2 and the Surface Duo, was that there were almost no updates for the original Duo,
Mm.
which is one of the reasons I no longer have a Duo.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, well, I fired up the Duo for the first time in a long time. It had been months since I last used it, so when I fired it up, I had like three major updates to
Right.
install, which was kind of a nice surprise. And I'll be taking the Duo to with me to New Orleans, so that'll be nice. And mainly, I'm gonna use it as like my work phone while I'm there because I'm still going to be getting Teams messages and Outlook messages and stuff like that. So I'll probably use the Duo for that, and that'll be great, and it'll be
So
wonderful and fun.
for the you for all of the let me just start that over.
Hmm?
So for all of the criminals in to where you're headed to,
Oh goddamn!
how how many phones will you be carrying?
I'm gonna
Just
have
so
a
they know.
bandolier. I'm gonna have no. Let's do the math. Six, I think.
Oh
No,
my
five.
goodness.
Five. 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 I think.
Only
Yeah,
five? Oh, okay.
only five. So yeah, and by the way, New Orleans is the only city in the world I've ever been pickpocketed in. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah.
I didn't know if you
So
were telling everybody where you were going, so I just said that city. But yeah,
oh
Nolans.
no. Yeah, I'm going to New Orleans for the weekend, courtesy of AT&T. We're going to talk about some 5G, some hot 5G action.
Oh,
That is
good.
a digital trends trip, by the way.
Will you ask them why your OnePlus 10 Pro won't work with AT&T 5G while you're there?
Well, actually, I did. Remind me to tell you a story about that off the air. But anyway, so let's move on. This month, Apple launched the first driver's license and state ID in wallet in the state of Arizona. And I mentioned this on, I think it was last week's podcast. I mentioned this was two hiatuses ago that Apple mentioned that they were going to do this, and they finally got it to roll out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in the state of Arizona. And it's my understanding that our how to article on digital trends on how to add your state ID to your wallet performed very well. So that's nice. But the reason I brought this up was not really, we talked about this a little bit, but I was just curious, me and you, we can talk about this.
Right.
How willing are you, assuming your state put it into place, how willing would you be to put your ID into your phone? And of course, we're talking about iPhones here, which doesn't apply to you all that often and only applies to me 6 months out of the year.
I'm
But,
actually carrying an iPhone right now. I'm carrying
how
two
are you?
phones, so yeah,
Okay.
carrying an XS Max, so not the latest and greatest, but still a good phone.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
sure. Um, Given that it's Apple, I actually would feel pretty comfortable with it. I think
Hmm.
if it were, I think I'd be okay with it with Google too. I don't think I would be comfortable with like an OEM like a Samsung or something if it was like not
Mm,
OS level. You know what I mean? Like it needs to be
I see where you're going
someone
with
that
that.
has a lot of security experience. Not
Okay.
that Samsung is insecure. I don't want. That was
I
just
was gonna
kind of
say
me being
Samsung has Knox. They're pretty
Knox.
hardcore about
Yeah, they are.
security. So yeah,
But that was just what. But it's the difference between you know owning and developing the OS versus just developing the hardware and then having
yeah.
some it's just the depth of it. And there may be no real reason for me to say that honestly. It's just sort of my gut in terms of what I would be comfortable with. I don't I would not want it to obviously be my only method of ID.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, I think I said this on the podcast too. I think my version of this would be similar to how I use Google Pay or Apple Pay. I still have the credit cards on me.
Right, exactly. Right.
It's just, you get less
Yeah, it's a
stares if you
convenience.
yeah. So yeah, I definitely agree that I would not make that my only source of ID. And actually, right now, I think they said in the state of Arizona, it's only at the Phoenix airport where they'll take it.
Hmm.
So it's not even like if you get a traffic stop, you have to like hand over your iPhone or something like that. It's only in specific designated places. And I'm also kind of curious as to like how they are getting the ID. Is it like a thing where you like pull up a picture of it and you like
So
show it to them and it's legit, or is this like an NFC thing where you like tap a terminal and it's like bing, here's my ID, like what I mean?
so here's what I've been thinking about with this. Ever since I had you had put in sort of the agenda for us to talk about today.
Yeah.
That it, and I don't know. I know that this is something that's in the works, being a digital ID from the government specifically, right? I This is where my comfort level would actually be a lot better. I don't know why, because it's not like I should feel great about the government's security necessarily, but
Right.
number one, it would be universal, at least for this country, and then it could be implemented across different devices and platforms. And so what do we? This is something I've been thinking about with electric vehicles, right? Right now, the frustrating thing is like unless you're, let me tell you this a different way. Right now, with electric vehicles, there's a whole bunch of different manufacturers trying to push their specific. I don't want to say like they each have their own proprietary charging solution, but
It's
there's
close,
it
but
is
yeah.
close to that. And what's weird about it is you'll hear something like, oh well, so and so is partnering with Starbucks to have charging stations in a Starbucks parking lot. Like it doesn't make any sense. It should be like more like gas stations. It doesn't make any sense that it should be like, oh, if I have a Ford electric vehicle, then I can only go to a Starbucks,
A
and
Starbucks, or if I
it's
have
just
a
it's
if I
very
have a
like
Chevy, then I have to go to a Dunkin' Donuts.
right, exactly. It's not quite that bad, but the point is this: there's no like universal standard that's being rolled out so that I can use my electric vehicle with any or most
Yeah.
charging stations, and it just feels very piecemeal. I don't understand why the government isn't regulating the shit out of it because
Yeah.
before too
I
much
agree.
infrastructure gets created. And this is where this is like sort of a really abstract way, the same way I'm kind of thinking about digital IDs, right? Because I
Mhm.
don't want it to be like an Apple specific thing or a Google specific thing. It needs to be something that works across different platforms, and that's where now we'll feel more comfortable about it.
Right. No, I totally agree. And yeah, you're right because this could turn into an Apple versus Android thing
Right.
and different standards, different implementations, and it's probably something that should be. Oh, wow. Sorry, I was just randomly scrolling my Twitter feed and I saw that E3 is canceled.
I saw that. Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know. I saw the headline.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna speed read this here for a second.
If only I
Video
was a
game
gamer,
trade
then I would
show
actually care.
shifted from an in-person event to an online only. Now it seems the digital event has been completely canceled. Growing concerns, COVID-19 in person, making prospect of a very large and famously packed event unattractive. Yeah, I'm going to the Final Four this weekend. Last week, a number of video game industry professionals reported testing positive for
Hmm.
COVID-19 after attending GDC. Oh crap, my colleague was there.
Mm.
Um, Video game publishers have increasingly withdrawn from E3 in favor of hosting their own events like Nintendo Direct and EA Play Live and Sony State of Play. Jeff Kiley, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, smoothly stepped in to announce that his summer game fest is confirmed for June, so that's nice. While not having E3 at all bodes ill for continued health of the show, yeah. Tweet said E3 will return in 2023 with a reinvigorated showcase that celebrates new and exciting video games and industry innovations. Unfortunately, if it's E3 in 2023, the video games that they're going to display are not going to come out until 2026.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Okay, so wow, that's some big news, huh? Well, yeah, I know we're not gamers, so that's not big deals for us. But that's going to go in the rundown for this weekend.
It's
which I'm going to be writing after we're done recording this.
Right. It's interesting that this feels like a delayed reaction kind of thing. When COVID finally starts to, I don't want to say it's calming down, but I mean, at least in my state, the amount of
kind of
hospitalizations are right until the next wave, I guess. But
right,
it's probably out of an abundance of caution, and it's probably a good thing that they're
no shade for
sure.
that. I mean, I'm still kind of wondering if maybe it's still a little bit early to be,
me too,
throwing caution to the wind. My wife was telling me the other day she was thinking about stopping wearing a mask at work, and I'm like, why? And she's like, I'm just tired of it. It's a terrible excuse, but there it is. I'm like, okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm not going to make you wear it, but it's, I still wear a mask when I go to Target. I'm going to wear a mask on the plane,
Oh,
so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Especially yeah. Well, especially because.
Right. What should we circle back to here?
Yeah. What were we talking about? I don't even remember. No,
we were talking about digital IDs.
Digital IDs. Yeah, right. Sorry about that. Sorry about the little tangent there. But in fact, I don't even know where my StreamYard tab is. There it is. Okay, here you are, back in again. So what were we saying? Oh, we were talking about standards, like standardization of digital IDs. So yeah, I'm kind of curious. I think I would take it for a thing. I think I would start using it as a thing. Okay, I'm me, so I'll start using it as a thing as soon as as Illinois adopts it. But I will start to take it seriously when it's a NFC type terminal where a cop walks up to your window and says license and registration. You tap the phone and he gets it, and then we're done. Like that's the end of that transaction, or not the end of that transaction. I'm sure there's going to be a ticket following, but anyway, that's the end of like me giving the police officer stuff.
Using your digital transaction.
Right, exactly. And you know what? Hey, maybe when he does that, I can just pay the ticket right away for
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. You can just pay it right there.
Mm-hmm. In fact, why can't you do that?
That's a really good question. Because there are no standards in the federal government right now.
Yeah. Anyway,
or state. So I'm like you. I probably would adopt it just because I tend to be not the earliest of adopters, but it's interesting. I mean, I think this kind of in a way goes back to I think you mentioned this in our last podcast about the video that Michael Fisher did about it. It was really about using your smartphone with like a digital display. Like I don't remember what the name of
the next dock.
The next dock, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. But my dream is to be able to use one, small device like this phone that I'm holding in my hand right here as like my workstation for my graphic design, my digital ID, all that stuff. I mean, and it sounds great, of course, until you like lose it or but
you are putting all your eggs in one basket there.
Right.
But just imagine an M1 iPhone. Whew. That would be like, and so like for context, I should mention, and I mentioned this to you off air, Cliff, and I tweeted this the other day, but I opened up 100 JPEGs in Photoshop on my M1 MacBook Air. Like this is a base model. I think it has did I say it has the 7-core GPU? I think it's like a base model. It has 16 gigs of RAM. So, it's not the base model.
Right.
And it has 512 gig SSD. Thank you very much, Digital Trends. But I opened up 100 JPEGs in Photoshop in 15 seconds.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, here's one picture, here's all the rest. I
Yes.
mean, it was literally that fast. If I did the same thing on my Legion 5i that I'm using right now, that would take 4 or 5 minutes easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I do it all the time, and I'm just like, holy crap, I really need to use this MacBook more. But I mean, it's crazy. So like, imagine an M1 iPhone
Oh,
with a next dock or something. I
I
mean,
would
it
love it.
doesn't have to be a next dock, but like, you take that to work, you plug it into a dumb terminal, and it comes up, and you've got your
Mm-hmm.
mouse and everything. Now it's Apple, so it'll suck as a desktop interface, but well, just because yeah, using an iPad as a laptop is
Oh,
half baked,
true.
but
But there's no reason you couldn't have something like a Ready for or a Nex, or I'm sorry, a Dex sort of
yeah,
interface that makes it more
Mac OS
Mac
like
OS like. Right,
yeah.
exactly.
So,
Um,
but
Speaking
will
of which,
Apple
as
ever
an
do that?
aside, I'm definitely gonna try out Ready for when I get a chance.
Yes, please do.
Mhm.
Please do. You've
Just
got
to
a
tell you how bad it is.
you have a couple of devices there that you're
I
going to need
do.
an extra monitor for.
I
So,
do.
by all means, let's talk about them. But anyway, all right. So, before we move on, we should do our patron shout outs because that's what we do here on the Benefit of a Doubt podcast. If you are a patron at the $5 level or more, you will get a shout out on every Doubting Thomas monthly recap, except last month, nobody noticed. Anyway, uh,
Huh?
so we're going to just start from the top and work our way down. First is Heim. Thank you very much, Heim. Next is Cliff, who is for some reason still paying me to be on this podcast. Thank you, Cliff. Josh Stone. Thank you, Josh. Mike Hahn. Thank you, Mike, friend of the show, Bender OG, and go check out his Lego build. Actually, I think he's doing a Lego build today. Neil Wilson. Thank you very much, Neil. Scott Brady. Thank you, Scott. And Zachary Palmer. Thank you very much, Zachary Palmer. So,
Yes,
and
thank you guys, including me.
those are our patrons. Thank you very much, patrons. You're keeping this show on the air, and that's almost literally the case at this point. So, just FYI, tell a friend. Benefitofadout.com. Anyway, so then we should move on to. I think this is going to be our final story. Maybe we might have something else to talk about, but the Mac Studio came out this month, and wonderful news, Mac fans. You have access to the removable SSD in there. It's not soldered to the board, but oops, if you try to put any other SSD in there, even one from another Mac Studio, like if you bought a second Mac Studio, took the SSD out of that and put it into the first one because there's an extra slot in there, the computer will not turn on because Apple blocks it at a software level, which is a dick move, Apple.
Yes,
Just
yes,
a
it is.
major dick move. And this comes on the heels of Apple announcing, hey, you can fix your own iPhone. So the right to repair
Right.
movement's like, holy crap, that's amazing. And speaking of which, Samsung did the same thing this week.
So
Announcing like right to repair initiatives and whatnot, and then it,
partnering with iFixit, actually, I believe,
yeah,
and coming
and
up
then
with kits for it. Yeah.
but then Apple turns around and pulls this BS. What the hell? So, I mean, that raises the question, and the more philosophical question that I wanted to talk to Cliff about was when you buy a piece of hardware, who gets to control what you do with it? Because the answer should be the person who forked over the $4,000 for the Mac Studio. But that's not always the answer, and that sucks. So, talk amongst ourselves.
Well, so here's my thing with it. My sort of compromise in my mind that I've always had is if you do decide to open up your hardware that you have purchased with your own money, and you do something like replace memory or replace a hard drive, it could be within within the rights of the manufacturer to say, sure, you can do this, but it voids your warranty.
Sure,
I feel like
absolutely.
that is like a good compromise if they're going to be that strict about it. Right?
That's
You
about
should
as far
still
as
have
they're
access
allowed
to
to
it.
go, though.
Right. And
So,
and
yeah.
not all manufacturers are that strict. I mean, I have an HP laptop that it's a workstation, granted, so it is actually meant for like to be opened up and serviced
General
by an IT.
futzery.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've upgraded. I've added an extra SSD and I've upgraded the memory in it. and it's and my warranty is still valid. Apple for since I guess the MacBook Air that came out has been making computers that were not easy to enter into and to replace components in. And most of the time, they're just soldered to the motherboard.
Hmm.
What is particularly egregious about this is that you can, as you said, access the SSD and physically replace it. It just won't work.
It just won't work. And
And
to be fair, Apple's not the
right.
only culprit here. Tesla famously had a number of cars that got an upgrade. Like I don't remember the exact story. This happened a few years ago, but basically there were a number of I'm just gonna say Model 3s. I'm gonna make up some stuff here that suddenly got a boost in range because Elon Musk decided to give them a boost of range, and it was just a software update. They just
Mhm.
took it in for I don't even think they had to take it in. I think it was just a firmware update that they ran, and suddenly
Well,
your range went from 210 miles to 240 miles,
with
which means
Tesla's
the hardware was always there,
correct.
but it was blocked from
Mm-hmm.
use, which is just another level. I mean, I don't think it's Apple level of BS because Apple's physically preventing you from using things if you mess with it, whereas Tesla's just we have this, we're just not going to let you use it unless you pay us for it.
Right.
But it's still it's we're such a hardware versus software type of culture right now.
Right.
Everything that we have has software in it. Like my refrigerator probably needs firmware updates.
I know
It's
my
like
oven gets firmware updates.
I
I
know
can tell
you're
you
up and dusty.
that.
Firmware updates. I think we actually didn't we do a tech on your oven the one
I
time.
think so. Yeah.
So it's just such it's slimy. It feels slimy. It feels gross that companies have this much control over a product that you bought. Back in the day, if you bought a coffee maker and you wanted to make margaritas out of it, that was your choice to make. And that's probably a terrible analogy, but whatever. I'm gonna run with it.
So there's two sides of this, right? Like in just the way I'm thinking about. Number one, I hate that a $2,000 computer is not upgradable.
Yeah,
You
a
literally,
$4,000 computer.
yeah.
This is a Mac Studio, bro.
This is Apple, right? This is Apple in general, though. What you buy is what you are stuck with. You can't even upgrade the RAM in a Mac, and so I mean, that's the
Hmm.
cautionary thing with buying a Mac these days is you have to think for the future if you intend on keeping the computer for a while. And for some people, 8 gigabytes of RAM is fine because they just may be a mom and pop kind of person just sitting around and accessing it for the using it for the browsing and just maybe looking at photos of their grandkids. But it bothers me, but especially when the costs are as high as they are. But the other
Sure.
side of this is I think with the specifically with the Mac. I'm sorry. It's the
It's a Mac
Mac
Studio.
Studio. That's right.
Yeah.
I wanted to call it the. There's I don't know. This is the problem with naming conventions. It's like they've introduced a new. I mean, they've had studio displays before, but it's not in my Apple vernacular in my head quite yet to say Mac
Yeah.
Studio. Mac Pro, yes, but this is most likely, I'm guessing, to make it easier to service the Mac by when if you take it into an Apple store.
Hmm.
That would be my guess. I don't know why else they would do it because
And I think they also have that for configuration too. Like if so basically Apple only needs to make one Mac Studio and
right.
they put in whatever SSDs people order. So if they order an 8 gig or an 8 terabyte SSD, then they put in two fours. Or if but for the same unit, if someone orders a 1 terabyte SSD, then they put in just a single,
less
SSD. I
less
think,
SKUs essentially.
yeah,
Yeah, that
basically.
make that makes sense. Um, and if you have the understanding that this is the way it is when you go in to purchase it, and I mean I did. I mean I purchased a MacBook Pro within the last year, and
Hmm.
knowing that I wouldn't be able to upgrade it, and so you just when you buy an Apple product, that's pretty much what you know. But what I hate about this is I guess this is
There's a
the
train.
yeah.
Anyway,
Um, wait for that to. Stop. Um, so in the end though, what it makes is a product that, lifespan wise might not last as long as it could otherwise because you can't upgrade it. And when the materials that go into silicon are into electronics in general are scarcer and scarcer.
Yeah.
Specifically when it comes to like the processors and stuff like that. And while there are recycling programs, it just seems like it would be nice for the computers to be able to last longer,
Sure.
especially in a computer that is not reliant on a battery, right? Like it's not like the Mac Studio has a battery in it that's just going to eventually the capacity is going to wear out or something.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
It yeah. So that's I don't think I really made like one particular statement there, but I have mixed feelings about it. I really do, and mostly negative.
Yeah, I don't have mixed feelings about it. I think this is just flat out wrong. I think that if, and especially because of the hoops that you have to jump through to get to this SSD. I mean,
Right.
like it's not for the faint of heart. I'll be totally honest. It's really not. So I think that this is just Apple exerting control over something that it should have zero right to exert control over. I mean, maybe there's an argument to be made, but honestly, if you want to stop people from messing with it, solder the damn thing closed.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, that's all you have to do. Don't make it openable, or make it so you need like a special tool to open it or
Right.
something. Like
Right.
there is zero reason why Apple should be able to do this. There is, I mean, I in my world, there's just no reason why Apple should be able to control this on a software level, you know,
Especially
control
at the
hardware
software
from a
level.
software
Right.
level. Yeah.
It also, to me, really makes me concerned about the future of the Mac Pro in terms of what it has always been. It's been their workstation, and it has always had expansion cards, and you've been able to upgrade your memory and install new hard disk drives and things like that. And so you weren't that was the thing. In fact, with Apple computers and forever, the thing that you did was you got the faster processor, and then you bought the RAM upgrade separately, and you can't do that on anything but a Mac Pro now. And I know that supposedly I mean it's inevitable that an M1 or Apple Silicon based Mac Pro is going to come, and is this like the end of the road for upgradable Apple hardware?
Yeah. Yeah, although I'm not really sure how much of a road that was to begin with, but yeah, it just sucks. I mean, really that's what it boils down to is it just flat out sucks. One thing I wanted to point out before we take off. I think we're pretty much done with this topic, but
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to point out was I also got, in addition to the OnePlus 10 Pro, I got the Gradient
Oh.
Silver OnePlus Buds. Now they have been better.
Oh, they
So
have.
yeah, so I had miles of problems with these things the first day that I took them out to use them. But I just wanted to show you like this finish, this gradient silver finish. I am going to do nothing right now but squeeze it. Ready? This is the first set of earbuds I have ever had that slides itself off the table. This thing is like holding a bar of soap. I kid you not. It is just it is just crazy how slippery these things are. So if I ever lose these, it's going to be because they like slipped out of my head and like fell down the sewer or
Right.
something. And like the buds themselves have the same coating on it. So like, if you try to, yeah, see? This is what I'm talking
He's
about.
lost them on air, folks.
But like, this part here, like up by where the ear is, like this is all slippery too. It's really hard to like fumble these back into the case. So I don't know what OnePlus was thinking when they came up with this finish, but
I've
just
I've got two words that they were thinking. Ooh, shiny.
yeah, it's ooh shiny, and that's really about it. No, so like honestly, 2 days ago, these earbuds were sitting at like a solid 3 out of 10. I'd say they're more like a 6 or a 7 at this
Okay.
point. So they've behaved a little bit better. I still don't necessarily like them, but they're better. But all right, so now that my mouse has completely refused to connect to my computer because I've been trying to futz with that for the last 20 minutes while we've been on air, while I've been letting Cliff talk while I've been trying to get my mouse to reconnect. But that is not happening. So we're going to go ahead and just wrap this puppy up. And that means I had my script. Where did it go? Shoot.
It slipped
Well,
away as fast as your OnePlus buds.
yeah, this is great radio here.
What does your
Hang on.
shirt say? I'd rather be
I'd rather be podcasting.
nice. I
Yeah,
like it.
my wife got that for me. I think for Christmas. So
I'm just gonna sit here uncomfortably close to the camera so you can see
I,
the
I
pores.
can't see you anyway, so it's fine. You can sit as close to the camera as you want. So anyway, yeah. So I've got my script up now, so we can. Oh no, except I can't. Oh man, why is this not? Oh God, what did I do? Oh my God, I closed all my windows. Shoot. Oh, this is terrible. This is amazing radio. Where the hell is the edge icon? Like I have. Wait, where? It's over here,
You're
isn't it?
also your audio is getting terrible.
Oh, is it? Oh shit. Oh,
It's like
that's not good. Wait,
sounds like you're.
what the hell is going on? My computer is like completely wigging out here. Uh oh, that's why, because I'm being stupid. Okay, there we go. All right, so Jesus Lord, this is a great podcast, everybody, and I think I'm going to leave all this in because I can. So,
and the thing that we're not even talking about here is the fact that at the beginning of it, you said we're gonna fly without a net on this one, and that's what happened.
Yep, we are flying without a net. So, all right, that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Please consider subscribing to this podcast if you enjoyed it. And if you really enjoyed it, I would love it if you would write a review for the show or comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you want some early access, jump onto Patreon at patreon.com/benefit of a doubt. You could write to the show by visiting benefitofadoubt/contact. I'd like to thank co-producer Cliff for all of his hard work behind the scenes and for coming on and chatting with me about the month that was. But most of all, and as always, I'd like to thank you for listening and for giving me the benefit of the doubt.
All right. I am stopping recording.